Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. I'm glad you're here. I'll be interviewing CEOs who have successfully scaled their B2B sales organization. In each episode, I'll start by uncovering the sales background of each CEO, dig into the strategies they use to build their sales organization, and wrap it up with what the future holds. We'll cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of scaling a sales organization. I'm your host, Alice Hyman. I'm really excited to have Amy DuRoss here with me today. She is an exceptional CEO, and I have the honor of talking with her on Sales Talk for CEOs about how she founded and grew her company, Vineti. Now, what's interesting is she is in the medical industry with a software that is for enterprise. Just going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what's even more unique is two female founders set out to start a business that was in a completely new category. This is with a new problem and a new solution just out there. And it's very exciting what they were able to do and how far they've come. And so, Amy, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Alice. It's great to be with you today.
So you have, medical background from Stanford. You've got many awards and accolades for doing some great things, and you worked for GE and Navgenics, and you had a career in the medical industry that was going really well, it sounds like, from reading all your history. But somehow you and Heidi got an idea and decided, we are going to start a company. Take us back and tell us how that all happened.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And I do have to say up front, Heidi and I were part of a group. So there were some other co-founders, some really important co-founders, including some who still work at the company today. But without Heidi, I can say with absolute certainty, the company wouldn't have been founded, because she is, and I can say a little bit more about her in the context of how the company came about. So I was working at a corporate venture platform run by General Electric and here in Silicon Valley. And we did a mix of equity investing in healthcare technologies with a heavy emphasis on enterprise, but not limited to some tools, some services. But my focus was always personalized medicine, and that has been my focus through my career. And so it was a really fortunate position to be in a venture context, to have leverage of one of the leading industries, leading healthcare companies, GE Healthcare at the time, sure. And then also be able to really explore and discover gaps in the market that were hindering not just GE Healthcare, but GE Healthcare's customers. So we did it was a wonderful mix of, here are problems that exist in the market, here are rate limiters, and then looking at either companies that already existed that we could invest in, or where there were no companies, we could found our own companies. And so Vineti came about as really an incubation effort at GE Ventures. And this is now about 8 years ago. One of the leading pharmaceutical companies, multinational companies, had just solved cancer for a young woman, a woman named Emily Whitehead, who was suffering from late-stage pediatric leukemia, ALL. And she received what's now known today as a CAR T therapy, which is a wonderful genetically modified mechanism that leverages the body's own immune system. It gives our T cells, which are immune cells, new targets to be very focused on specific cancer agents. And so this pharmaceutical company had just cured this young woman, realized there were many more patients to cure, but they also realized that they didn't have the tools to achieve scale, to really extend access to those patients in need. And that was because this was truly personalized medicine, which meant every single therapeutic was designed for that specific patient. So
So that means it's not going to be you, like the one I use for you is not going to be used on me. It has to be absolutely personalized.
That's absolutely correct. And what's more, the stakes are so high that, Alice, if you receive my therapy and I receive yours by accident, it could be a fatal event, and most likely would
Wow.
be. So, our pharmaceutical partners, again, how do we achieve what we called at the time mass customization, which seems like a contradiction in terms, but
Right.
mass customization. And so my GE colleagues and I went through a bunch of different sort of diligence efforts to look at different parts of the production and delivery process for these truly personalized technologies or medical therapies. And we really focused on one aspect, which is known as chain of identity and chain of custody. That is really a unique patient identifier that follows the production and delivery process from the beginning to the very end to make sure, Alice, that you, as a patient, receive your therapy at the right time, and that there's no safety risk in that regard. Wow. And Heidi was an absolute innovator in this field that we address, personalized medicine, and had really helped steward the first approved cell therapy, which is the format that cell and gene therapy that we play in. And she had done this mass customization the hard way. It had been an on-premise software that they had to build themselves, was constantly not just breaking down, but frankly becoming obsolete because the mechanisms of the therapeutics were evolving and the workflow requirements were evolving. So long story short, we were very fortunate to get Heidi engaged along with our other co-founders and did a lot of hard work, kind of pressure testing. Most of our concepts never made it to the light of day. This one just kept going. And so it resulted in a company, an independent company. We spun out of GE. We partnered with the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota to also co-found this company. And then now it's a freestanding independent company about 6 years old.
Wow. Congratulations. I mean, I'm listening to that thinking the amount of work that went in, the amount of failure that had to happen.
Absolutely.
And I think, this is where we read on LinkedIn and we read in, Forbes and all these different places, right, about failure. But yeah. I think that in some industries, especially in medicine, we have to have a lot more failures than successes, right, to really get where we want to be. And it sounds like you mentioned, many of the things you tried just simply didn't work, but you finally hit on it. Yeah. And when you did, you recognized, wow. And the people around you, your other co-founders, GE, Mayo Clinic, everybody said, yes, this is going to work. Let's go. And so you did. And now because you started a new category, yes. Right? So now you have a company and funding and you have a great software product that's going to help. How do you sell this?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So, enterprise software, and I'm still and will always be a student of enterprise. It's just a fascinating and never-ending opportunity for learning and growth. You can't create it in a vacuum. So you really have to have a partner with very specific requirements that you can essentially treat as a scaffold for your enterprise software platform. So we were really fortunate when we founded Vineti that the week we founded the company, we secured our first customer. And this company was about to transition from clinical R&D, research and discovery mode into commercialization. We're anticipating an approval of their therapy. And so the other interesting aspect of Vineti as a new category, as you rightly cite, is that we are actually required by FDA and other regulators around the world. A system like ours that automates this chain of identity concept, this unique patient identifier, is required for commercialization, which is really the regulators saying, this is really complicated and the risks are really high. So we need software in the mix here to really make sure right patient, right therapy, right time. And so we were really fortunate. We walked in with a few PowerPoint slides, a few wireframes that we had worked up. We were 4 people with a company at that time, and we pitched our vision. And we were, this company that was our first customer took an enormous risk on us because we didn't really have a platform yet. We had a concept. We had done a ton of work on it. We understood the nature of the problem we were solving very well. But frankly, we didn't understand it as well as the pharmaceutical company we ended up partnering up with right away. So we learned a tremendous amount right out the gate. And they allowed us to co-create this first iteration, the first version of our platform. So it was all the sort of vision, mission, storytelling, and shared objective from the first moment we met this customer.
I'll tell you a key thing that I'm hearing here too is timing.
Yes.
And I teach entrepreneurship at the University of Nevada, and of course I teach sales in the entrepreneurship minor. And we talk a lot about, product market fit and, when are we ready to go? And, then of course getting the investors and the environment, the climate, all the things that we need to be right to go. And one of the things that sometimes gets left out and not talked about enough is timing. And so people sometimes call that luck, but it's not, right? It's very specific. And you were solving something at a time, right, when it was a very manual process and these very big companies had to do this exactly right. So this is arduous, right? And it takes a lot of humans to do it and a lot of double checking. And so you come out at the right time with hey, we think we can solve this, but we're going to need your help because we can't do this hypothetically. Right. We got to have a real problem to work on to build it.
That's
and
right.
The timing, people might call it luck, but again, I really truly believe it's timing, and you had the right timing and you showed up in the right place and you got them to believe what you believe.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we're going to take a chance on you.
That's right. Yeah. And I think, for what it's worth, and again, my MO, whether was learned or just native, is really, I kind of don't get excited about something unless there's a moonshot aspect to it. That it's also connected to patients. That's always been my through line. I got started as a patient advocate when I was very young in life, actually as a child. And so that's the foundation that everything flows from. So I think that anytime I see a merger of patient rights, patient access, and then something new, like a new category, Vineti being a great example, or new legislation that will help hasten access or coverage for therapies, or our stem cell initiative here in California that I co-authored and ran. That's for me what motivates me. And I do believe that the other part of this is I've just been so fortunate with the people that I've partnered up with in the selling journey, because that shared sort of value system, the shared mission vision, if that's really authentic, if you really have that it's not, there's no window dressing on it, then,
right.
then I think that gives you an edge, right? And you kind of also influence the timing, because if you are so convicted,
right,
then you translate that conviction, timing being one component of the conviction. So I think I've just been really fortunate in my career to have great selling partners and great topics that motivate me.
I think that, Amy, you attract them to yourself because of the tremendous passion that you have, and they feel that and they want to be in that, and I think that they have that same kind of passion, and it's magnetic. right? The people with the passions, like Simon Sinek always says, you've got to get them to believe what you believe. And when you get 3, 4, or 5 people together who all believe the same thing and have also the brain power to make something better than it's ever been before, make something new that we've never had before that's going to make our lives better, like powerful stuff, right? And so you get this big company who sees and feels this and believes in you that you can do this, and they're willing to take the risk because it's an arduous problem that they truly need to solve, and they can't do it on their own. So here you are, you've got one customer. Okay. I would imagine they were willing to pay you quite a bit of money, enough to make it worth everybody doing it. But all right, one customer is never enough. So tell us what happened next, and how long before you started looking for some other clients, and how did you do it? Who did it? How did you do it? You know, when we were talking before we started recording, you mentioned that you have this tremendous network, and I think this is so important. So I really want you to tell us about that. But talk about how the sales grew and how you built your sales organization.
Sure. I think so we had to focus with this first customer for an extended period. And it was actually the only time in the history of the company we had any exclusivity. It was time limited, but still it was there because, frankly, they needed our focus. We were doing this for the first time together as partners, and we didn't have bandwidth for more than one when we first got started. So I think it was a year into that partnership that we began and we had some interesting inbound come during that exclusivity period, but kind of asked them politely if we could wait until we were really focused and felt confident that our work, because the regulatory requirement is really crucial. So you want to make sure.
That's an added component that I work with a lot of software companies that sell to enterprise, but they don't have that component. That's critical.
It's very right, because that makes or breaks the ability to commercialize your product if you don't have approval. So we had to be super, super focused. But I think that the word got out that we were this laser focused team on this very specific problem statement that was germane and frankly idiosyncratic to the field. And we were then, frankly, the first several additional customers were mostly inbound. We then went out and acquired those customers actively. But I think that it's a very small industry. It's an emergent industry. So, and there's a small, this is 6 years later, but there was a very small group of people, and it's still too small, frankly, Alice, who actually know this market and understand it beyond, hey, let's try to pattern match from other segments in pharmaceuticals. It's really a different and new paradigm altogether. So we got renowned early as a team that was really focused, and we still that renown is a team that we've never pivoted from chain of identity and chain of custody. That's always been our consistent focus. And frankly, the more we invest in that problem statement, the more we uncover to solve. So it's just an endless complexity. So early, it was founder story type selling, a lot of accessing Heidi's network, my own network, networks in our board, and then we have
people here, right? I mean, word gets out. It's like, what are Vineti? Who are they, and what are they doing? Oh, that's a team from Stanford. Oh, yeah, they were working in that GE accelerator. What happened over there? So, they launched this little company, and now they've got this one client, and everybody's waiting to hear, right? How is that project going? So you've got that kind of natural build in your circle, in your world, the world of people who know and need what you do, right? And so that story carries itself, right?
It carries itself, and yet we also had some really high-powered talent really propelling the story that right out the gate. We had a phenomenal marketer who's still running the marketing team at our company, she really, her name is April Lynch. She's also a an author, published author in precision medicine. She's done
wow.
a former investigative reporter, and she's been at numerous startups and grown teams, an amazing storyteller and key opinion leader, really. And she took the reins early and really helped us craft the story, and with a remarkably small budget, amazingly small. And same with our sales. I mean, we, if you look at the spend of Vineti on sales and marketing versus product and engineering, it's very it's a little bit dwarfed by the product is so complicated and so it's a heavy lift, and but our marketing and sales has been lean and incredibly focused and great executors. I think the other thing that unites both marketing and sales at Vineti is just this shared passion around the mission and vision. So that is exuded in all the outreach and all the social media campaigns and the kind of, door-to-door selling, in the churches. And that, I think, genuinely is felt in the marketplace, that our team is really a committed team and that we're out there working day and night, but united by this shared mission and culture and values. So we told the story early and often, and we had a megaphone. We a wonderful marketing expert. We were so fortunate to engage early, and that helped really accelerate the buzz and sense of understanding about what we were trying to accomplish and who we were and who we are.
Right. And so were these companies coming to you when they started hearing, and maybe you weren't quite ready yet because you were still, you said, in this inclusivity period, exclusivity period where you couldn't really work with anybody else, right? But they were hearing, so they were maybe kind of lining up to wait to work with you next.
That happened in our next, I'd say, like our second through fifth customers, but then we went proactively to create our pipeline and build the funnel and do a lot of the segmentation work, because the market is very defined in the sense that it's small and growing. It's also the fastest growing area of pharmaceuticals in the whole industry. So there's a lot of investment and excitement around the field. So it's so there's a lot of coverage, and we have, fortunately, from our network, the ability to really keep tabs on every stage of companies. So from the very kind of pre-clinical all the way through to global commercial programs and targets, and then we just began to very systematically go out proactively, attend all the conferences, spend time mostly on the East Coast and out here in the Bay Area or San Diego, where most of these companies sit. Not all of them. We're fortunate to have some customers in the Midwest too. We're very proud of, but did a lot of just sort of, but brass tacks selling too. Lots of selling. Yeah.
Well, you truly have a complex sale, which is what I specialize in, right? This is a very long sales cycle. Is a lot of technicalities and complexities. There's a lot of integrations that have to happen. A lot of people at your customer have to get involved in order to purchase it and make it happen. And you need a team on your side of people to be involved to purchase it and make it. I mean, it is truly the epitome of a complex sale. Now, how much experience had you had selling prior to starting this company, yourself and the others? Were you ever in sales before you started this?
I mean, honestly, Alice, I think there's always so much more to learn, and in every aspect of business or work or life. But I have always been, I think, pretty sales-led in my approach to my work. So whereas I got some formal training, I was the business officer at Navigenics. I did a lot of the selling there and marketing. But I've always been more of a sales, sort of market-facing sales been executive. That's really been my calling. Again, for when there's something I really a cause I care about, or a product I care about. So I still have more to learn in sales. There's no doubt, and I learn from my colleagues all the time. I learn from my own reading and exploration. But I think that's been a natural orientation for me from the beginning. Yeah.
So you felt, I mean, it was natural and you felt inclined, and is easier then for you, where I talk with some founder CEOs who never did any sales. They were either engineers or, finance or something, right? And then they come into it and it's like, oh, wow, like I actually have to go sell something. And, miraculously they do it because they have that entrepreneurial enthusiasm, right? And they have that passion, and that can take you a long way. But there does come a point, whether you have the sales experience or whether you don't, where you cannot run the company, and especially in your case where you're really using your brains on important problems that need to be solved, as well as running a company and doing the sales, right? Taking care of so many things, wearing so many hats. You come to a point where you say, hey, we need some help in sales and marketing. Now, you said you had a really great marketer that joined your team early. Yes. But what about sales? When it came time where you said, I need more help with sales because we've got to get outbound and bring more in. How did you decide? What was that kind of moment where you went, okay, you guys, we got to get some salespeople in here because we can't do this alone anymore?
Even within the moment of exclusivity, we had to get ramped up for when that exclusivity ended with our first customer. And we were really fortunate to hire a leader who had been in a pharma-facing software company for many years, a manufacturing-focused software company, a guy named Mark Pewich, who's still with the company, a senior sales leader. And he has this great ability to, first of all, he's very detail-oriented, so he studies the science, the medical science, studies the manufacturing capabilities, where the gaps are, and also had been for almost 10 years prior in a pharmaceutical manufacturing context, that brought a lot of that knowledge into the company. But he also has this fantastic ability to be on the side of the customer. So whereas he was, and even, with some of our larger customers, they wanted him to also be their account manager.
Right.
Do both, but he was a wonderful first salesperson because he, first of all, really believed in the mission and vision. And I think had this, saw where other software had made a difference in pharmaceutical manufacturing and where it was lacking. So he had a sense of enterprise is this continuous effort. It's never finished, right? There are routinized deployments always coming up. There's also a roadmap that's being redefined and reprioritized. And so there's never like a shrink wrapped stuff. That's not our game, right? Customized software. So he brought that mindset too and could really articulate that well to customers, many of whom, you mentioned the complexity of our sale. One of the aspects of what Vineti focuses on, this chain of identity concept, is that we're really the source of truth. We're the link in the chain, or the smart plumbing that connects all of these disparate stakeholders in pharmaceutical manufacturing delivery, in systems, different systems of record, different other software systems we have to integrate to. And so depending on what size company, where the product is in terms of its own life cycle, you're selling to different people inside of these pharma companies. So that 360-degree sales notion is really, it's both the form and the function of Vineti's software. And so you have to be able to, and our sales folks really are, to speak to the CEO and speak to the tech ops leaders and the folks who are manufacturing in the shop floor and the healthcare providers. You have doctors and technicians and nurses using our software in hospitals. So there's this sort of versatility of being able to understand each user, what their needs are, and then in a selling stance, really convert those needs to a win for each of these functions.
Yeah.
And the other thing about new categories like the one we're helping to create is you have people who have worked side by side, but in silos inside pharmaceutical or biotech forever, and for good reason. Like some of these functions, they really don't need to interact or not dependent on one another. In our field, you have clinical operations and manufacturing working together. You've got all the reimbursement tied back to the manufacturing software. It's a totally different paradigm. So you have to be able to translate across different functions. Yeah. And actually our software ends up aligning a lot of these functions to share requirements. So that notion and our sales leaders and now our customer success team, which does all the upselling in our organization, really performs such a unique and valuable, both in the software we implement, but also in all the services around the software, in speaking to so many different functions at once. And that is the heart of complexity, is finding where does everybody meet, where are they different, but having everyone's agenda in mind and meeting everybody's needs is incredibly hard to do well. And that is part of why it's also an extended time frame usually for our sales process. We have to do all of that interdependent work inside the prospect.
Yeah. It's a beautiful example of being truly customer focused, which is something I work hard every day to teach teams out there in the world of selling that have a complex sale. They so look inward and at their complexities and what they need to get done and how they need to do it, that it's hard for them sometimes to see it from the customer point of view and to really understand that customer journey. But in your business, you have no choice. You have to, because you can't build it without doing that.
That's correct.
It sounds like you had this amazing commercial leader from very early on, which
we did.
Again, good timing, or maybe people call it luck, but he was attracted to your passion and had a similar passion, which I think this whole company sounds like it's full of passionate people who want to solve this very, very important problem. And I love that.
Yes.
But he probably not long after said, hey, I can't do this all by myself either.
Exactly.
And we had to continue to grow, because you're 8 years in now today. And I know the first few years was really R&D and there was no selling going on. But for at least 5 years, you've actually had customers and you've sold. And it is a very targeted audience, which is really excellent. It does make it a bit easier in some ways, because you do know exactly who you're talking to and the problem they need to solve. It doesn't make it any less complex, though, in getting it done, but at least you know exactly who you're aiming at. But what I find is that, especially in early stage companies, it is hard to find and keep good salespeople, get the right salespeople on board that have not just the skills, because selling skills are just part of it. It's great. It's great if they come with selling skills. It's awesome, especially with a complex sale. We need them to understand how that works. But in your case, they also had to have this passion for what you do and this deep understanding of the technology and the pieces that all have to work together.
Yes.
So that they could really help the customer, because they really had to be subject matter experts enough to orchestrate. So how did you go about finding these people?
Yeah, I'll be honest. We made some mistakes, and they're mutual fit, right? I always think of hiring as mutual commitment and a mutual fit. Folks who came from enterprise backgrounds, and maybe even sold to life sciences, but didn't really understand the complexity of the sale at Vineti. Or folks who came from the life sciences who really couldn't quite totally embody the enterprise component of the sales. And then we were really fortunate to find some good fits. And we made a seismic shift in the company when we hired our commercial officer a couple of years ago, a gentleman named Joe DePinto, who has the distinction of being an operator in our market, as well as being in a big pharma environment for many years. as well as specialty pharma, which is where our market sits. He ran a very profitable distribution business within a broader healthcare company. So he brought this phenomenal network and deep understanding of what we do. And so became an internal KOL as well as just an absolute evangelizer for the company, and brought all these different people. This is the other thing about new markets, is that there tends to be a diaspora and a kind of recycling of teams in different parts of the ecosystem. So Joe's network was just invaluable, because so many of our early customers or his former customers or some of his former colleagues when he was on the industry side were placed in different biotechs or different pharma companies. And so he really expanded our pipeline seismically when he joined the company.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. So we make mistakes sometimes in hiring, and there's no real way to know. These people seem if they're going to be amazing, but you're right, that fit goes both ways.
Absolutely.
And with the complexities that you have, I'm sure it took a while to settle in to get those right people on board. Now, I know you have a fairly small sales team, and yet you are very mighty. So you mentioned that it's sort of a 360, and it sounds like everybody at your company is involved in the sale, because they have to be, right? So it isn't like you as the CEO just get to step out. Oh, I got a commercial leader now and some salespeople. I'm done with sales. I can just step out and let them all do it. That is not the way it worked.
That's right. Yeah. I think the difference with the kind of leadership we've been fortunate to have in the commercial organization is that I have been brought in for really targeted activities. So whereas before I was much more of like the funnel and pipeline builder, it was very much in the trenches, pretty much selling not nonstop, either selling to customers or to investors. I got to be more selective in the focus of where I stepped in, and to support, as opposed to having to lead every sales effort, which was an amazing change for me in terms of my ability to manage time and focus on other priorities for the business. So it was a total godsend for me personally to have and I learned a lot from my commercial officer. I continuously learned from so many of my teammates, but he really taught me different tactics and strategies that I hadn't been exposed to before.
It's really, truly a magical moment when the founder, CEO, sees that the company has matured enough that their role in sales can be a more strategic role, a more specific role, and that they don't have to drive every sale, right?
Right.
It truly is that magical moment. And I felt that when you were explaining that. I was like, right? A relief.
Yeah.
And it frees up your time to do other things that CEOs need to do. And we all as founder CEOs know, that the great thing about owning a company is that you get to choose which 24 hours you want to work, right? Out of the day. I mean, you get to have a few for sleep, and maybe you get to see your kids once in a while, but truly, and when you are starting and you are running the company and building the product and selling, there really isn't time for a whole lot more. And then all of a sudden you get to this place where it's like, oh my gosh, I have some people in place who can do some other things, freeing up some brain space as well as some actual time to now really think more strategically about the sales and the company and the product, right? So take us from there. So now the company's a little more mature and you've got these people in place. Mm-hmm. They're doing great, and they're using you strategically. Like, hey, Amy, can you come in on this one and help us here? Mm-hmm. And tell us about how the company matured and how you helped them learn, and they helped you learn how to use the CEO in sales without having the CEO be the one doing everything.
Yeah. Well, one of the important inflection points is we have our CS team is, I think, by far the best in the industry. I've just never seen a group of more committed, customer oriented, but also very pragmatic and product centric people. And they handle all of the inside sales. So the really, Joe, our commercial lead, had really invested in that team and helped grow that team, grow the both the awareness of product and making sure that we had all of the FIMs or the functional implementation managers locked in, and then the CSMs, which are more of the sort of project management and customer facing team. But the credibility and the advocacy for the customer, but also for the product, that just changed our environment. Allowed us to, we actually underestimated our inside sales a couple of years running because this team was just so effective. And also because, as I said before, in our market, there's always new requirements coming.
Yes, yes.
So there's always additional implementation work. That has allowed us to have a much more structured and process-led interaction with existing customers. And that's crucial in an emergent market because everything's about referenceability.
Yeah.
So that depth of trust and that foundation that our customer success team I credit them with most of that foundation building. That allowed us to then really grow our pipeline much faster because we had that benefit of solid reference customers. So I think that's a really interesting thing. Again, enterprise taught me is that function, how critical that can be for quality deployments and implementation of the actual platform itself. But just the referenceability, which is everything, especially in a small growing market. And we put a lot of timed and really important investment into that function at the right time, and that changed that. Then they could also bring me in and say, okay, well, this big 5 pharma customer needs to be on their monthly steering committee. We always meet a week before that committee. They prep me. We walk through the deck, figure out where I need to press, what my objective is for the meetings. They just did a fabulous job with that kind of prep. And that inside sales then really led to many more external sales as well. Outside or new sales, I should say.
Such an important thing and so many times overlooked. You'd be surprised because it really doesn't matter whether you're selling something very complex like you are that is customized to every company, or whether you're selling an enterprise software that's pretty much the same, and it's maybe marketing technology or sales technology or something else. Mm-hmm. Our current customers are gold.
Yes.
But some CEOs don't recognize that for some reason. And what you mentioned about that reference ability being so important. So we get these customers, we want to keep them. We want to, get really close with them, learn more about them, continue to help them solve these complex problems that they're solving, right? Mm-hmm. And really treat them, in a way that makes them just really happy to do business with us, but also really happy to grow with us and happy to tell others about us. And there is no better way to get a sale than to have somebody bragging about you to another company that can use your services. I mean, my goodness, that would be everyone's greatest wish, right?
Yes. Agree. I totally agree. I think, and then the other aspect of that is what we do is so collaborative with our customers. So you really have to find the ways to extend, be one team with your customer and yet also maintain your identity as a separate, independent, agnostic platform. And that takes a lot of focus and consistency in the team and in terms of establishing boundaries, but also really flexing those boundaries when issues come up. And and I think this team, our CS team in particular, breeds more goodness. There's a level of
Yeah.
accountability and excellence, and there's so much pride and well-deserved in how they function, that it's just bred even more excellence, in my opinion.
So much of sales today, especially, I think, is orchestrating.
Yes.
So, and I count customer success, right, as sales, because they truly are. I mean, a lot of people think our job is done when we close the deal and sign on the dotted line. Now it's, delivery's problem to get it there, get them the product, get them what they bought. But it's just not true, right? We have that's just the beginning. Now is the real selling begins. We want to help them believe and know that we can deliver on what we promise. That selling has to happen. The maintaining of the relationship is a sale. The growing with them is a sale, right? So those CS people really have to be very good at relationships and understanding and listening and knowing their customers and knowing the industry that their customers live in so that they can bring value, continued value, right? So again, back to that referenceability, because they've done such a great job. And then it goes back to, hey, I think there's more business here. Back to the sales team, bring it back, and they're working with it. And then again, orchestrating and knowing when to bring in a subject matter expert, when to bring in the CEO, when to bring in these other players at your company, so that you really give the customer this rich experience and they have access to the people and the knowledge that they need at your company and don't feel like blockaded from it or like, we don't know who to call, right? So you develop this very, very important piece of your business that allows you to sell even more, right? Because you've taken such good care of your current customers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we certainly had learnings and continue to have learnings along the way. It's not to suggest we've been flawless in that regard. We've learned, in some cases the hard way, but the important aspect of learning is that you adopt and apply learnings. And I think that our CS team and really our commercial team beyond is really particularly capable of learning and adjusting and wants to learn. I think that's the other thing perhaps one of the things I'm most proud of in the team at Vineti, beyond even our commercial group across the organization, is there is a level of humility. And humility isn't exclusive to confidence. There's confidence as well, but a level of really this continuous learning mindset as growth mindset. The company really does espouse that and acknowledges when we've made mistakes. We probably could celebrate our wins a little bit more sometimes.
Yes.
Hard on ourselves, but definitely a lot of humility in the company, and that goes for our commercial team as well.
Well, again, back to, you have to have some failures, right, to really build the success. So, we really failed with this customer. How do we make it better?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure we don't do that again?
That's right.
Right? Is just super important. So as we wrap up here, your role in sales as the CEO changed, in the years that you spent running the company. And you've had a recent change as you have stepped down as CEO and put another CEO in, another female CEO. Very exciting to see.
Yes.
And I'm curious about what your role in sales will be now and what you see kind of in the future for Vineti with sales.
Great question. So I think this is true of most founders I know, that you're always selling, regardless of what vantage point you have within the company. So I will continue to be Vineti's champion, and it's sort of squad cheerleader. So like the top squad cheerleader from vantage point. I think this next stage of growth for the company is really going to be because the platform is maturing and evolving, we will get to a point where there'll be more kind of routinized sales. Now, there'll still be complex sales, but it's not going to be always the sort of founder vision, founder and senior team network driven sales. It's going to be much more of a, sort of a growth phase company. I'd say just a more routinized process than it has been to date. So that's really exciting. I think that we're a global platform, and which is a phenomenal milestone we achieved within the last year, and that also means that the sales efforts will become
global,
regionalized, and there are different needs in different regions that obviously very different selling practices and cultures and customs. So it'll be fun to see how the company adopts some of those and extends the team. It's going to be really fun to see your baby grow up with different kinds of support and different team in place. It'll be really fun.
So you'll be out there evangelizing.
Absolutely.
You'll be out there with your largest customers, still talking with them about their complex problems, and you'll be cheering the team on, which I just love. And I think it's such an important job of a CEO to really cheer everybody on, but that sales team who really does take the weight, to be there supporting them and cheering them on. So as we close, tell me what's next for you. So now you have a little more time on your hands, and I know because you mentioned it briefly that you have an idea that you might be starting something new.
Yeah, thank you for that. I can't say much more about it this time. I mean, I think the people who know me well know that patients for me are a through line. I've always been focused on patients. That advocacy and really the problem statement around patients. There's so many. There's an endless number of problem statements around supporting patients. There's an amount of work to be done, frankly, to improve how patients are addressed and how they're treated. So that'll be here forever, my entire life. That's going to be my focus. And so I love this cell and gene therapy market that Vineti serves. It's really fun to, again, remain a champion for Vineti, as you said eloquently, and begin to think about the next sort of entrepreneurial chapter. So we'll see.
And have a little more time for those 3 kids of yours as well, which, as moms, we all, running companies, those of you who know what we're talking about, it's a delicate balance, and it's wonderful to have that. Have that balance, have your kids grow up seeing you as an entrepreneur, but then also, getting to spend time with them and such. So we'll be watching Vineti doing amazing things. We'll keep in touch so that I can find out when you're ready to announce what your next venture is.
Thanks.
And if there's any way that I can support you, please know that I would always be delighted to do that. And I just so appreciate you coming on the show today and telling us your story and how you built your sales organization. You really embody all of the things that I talk about all the time to CEOs in terms of, loving sales and having that passion for what you do and how you do it and for the people who do it with you. And that passion can really take us a long way. And I see that in you, and I so admire that. And I thank you, Amy.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you, Alice. It's wonderful work that you do, and helping people really tell their story in a way. I mean, this is in a more effective way, and then impacting more people as a result is just is a phenomenal gift. And you sharing your gift with other professionals is just a wonderful service. So keep it up, and thank you for all of your good work.
Well, thank you, Amy, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Looking forward to it. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Sales Talk for CEOs. you can find me at alicehyman.com. Be sure and connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know that you heard the show. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, write a review, and share the show with another CEO.